Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm the founder and head instructor at Connors Martial Arts in Norwood, Mass. We teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, and mixed martial arts. So just reach out to us, send us a message, give us a call, and we'll get you started on your martial arts path. And I'm here with my host, Dan Robin. How you doing, Dan?
Oh, all right.
You're all right.
Fine.
We had a week off. We had a hiatus, as they say.
Yeah, we were out of town for different reasons.
Yeah. So now we just have so much material to cover.
Yeah, this is, I think, probably going to be the train wreck of a podcast.
This is when we're finally going to get exposed as imposters.
It took 50 episodes.
Yeah, I think this is 44, I think. Is it? Yeah. You're right. This is it. When people are going to go, wait a minute, these guys aren't real podcasters.
This is going to be our 3-minute podcast. 3 minutes in, we're going to be like, all right, well.
It was a tight 3 minutes, though. Yeah.
Yeah, let's make it a good 3. A solid 3.
That's fair. We talked about the imposter syndrome before, I think, on this podcast.
We might have.
Yeah. I realized very late in life that if you're not feeling like an imposter, you're not trying hard enough. You're not doing enough. You know, let me tell you this. I probably told this story, but I just think it's fascinating. So there was a guy who started a promotion for MMA fighting, and this is way back when. And I remember watching the guy, and I'm like thinking to myself, this guy really doesn't know what he's doing. But nobody did, because nobody was really doing it. And then he started a grappling tournament promotion, and I kind of felt the same thing. But, you know, here he is, super successful, financially, incredibly wealthy. And
so if anyone doesn't know, the imposter syndrome is a very common thing that you feel like people don't realize how clueless you are. Like the idea, usually it's used, when I heard it used, was for a new job, right? You get there and everyone, it's very common to feel like no one here realizes that I don't know what I'm doing. No one here realizes they think I'm really good and I'm really not. They think I know this coding and I don't know this coding. They think I know how to do this and I don't. And what you don't realize is that many, many people feel that way.
I think when you first get out of college, when you go on to almost any position, you probably feel that way, because college really isn't teaching you. Even if you get an engineering degree, you got to go to some company and they teach you what you have to do.
And
I suppose.
you don't. I think it's very common as part of this with college students. You don't realize that the older people know that. You know, they know that you don't know anything.
Right.
And we've talked about it for job interviews, right? Where you're interviewing, like for now at our age, you're interviewing kid out of college, and they're like, oh, I know this, and you know they don't know anything. But I remember being the kid interviewing, and you're pretending like you.
Yeah, you're kind of shitting your pants that you're going to get found out as a complete fraud.
Yeah.
And you're bluffing through it, and you realize you don't have to bluff to show that you're smart and willing to work hard.
Right. Have you ever had an interview where you were just like, I don't know the answer to this question? Or I had one.
I can't remember.
I'll say I had one. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I had one where they were like, do you know SAS coding? It's this kind of coding to do statistical programming. And I knew a little, but I didn't know that much. So I was like, yeah.
You knew a little bit, like you knew.
I knew that I could look it up and figure.
Como sta?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then, so I was on the interview, and they're like, did you know SAS coding? And I'm like, yeah, I know some SAS coding. And they had a piece of paper and a pencil, and they slide it across the desk and go, all right, can you write out a code that does, whatever it was, finds the mean median mode of a set of numbers that are not a normal curve, something like this, where I'm like, oh boy.
You're sitting there, they go, do you know SAS coding? And you go, yes. And then you see the hands go to the pencil and paper, and you can hear it sliding across the
Yeah, exactly.
In slow motion.
Exactly.
What did you do?
So it got to me, and I'm like, that it's like literally like the beat
the
of sweat. Like, so I just reached out and like slid I slid it back. I'm not even kidding. I slid it back. I was like, like back across the table, and I'm like, the the way I approached it was I was like, my understanding that this wasn't like a coding job that I had to. I'm not a SAS coder, and they were like, yeah, but I just want to see that you know some basic SAS coding.
Did they slide it back?
So yeah, I was like, just slide it back. Yeah, I think I stopped it halfway. This time, like, blocked it, and I'm like, my whole take was to sort of that, like, it's not that I can't do it, it's that why I'm offended that you're asking me to do it. Dude, I was sort of like, I'm not applying to a SAS coding position. Am I correct?
You, sir.
Am I correct? This is more of a managerial position where, and they were like, yes, but I just want to see that you have some basic skills. And I just acted like I had no idea what they were talking about.
Am I some code writing monkey?
Yeah,
at your service,
exactly.
Sir?
I was like, I'm sorry. I thought this was above just being a basic coder. And they're like, yeah, but we want to just see that you know.
You weren't about to stoop to coding.
Exactly.
Them.
That was my whole take on it. They're like, simple coding.
How'd that go? Did that work?
No, I didn't get the It's like, I know the great ending is like, and they offered me. It's like, no, then I did not get the job. But it was bad too. It was.
When you said, "Do I know it?" I thought you meant, "Do I know what it is?"
I was just.
I know SAS coding more in the sense that I know it's a phrase of basically 2 words.
Yeah.
It has something to do with.
It's just a terrible feeling to be on any sort of job. Being like, so that's not imposter syndrome.
Oh,
that
right.
is like being caught as an actual imposter.
You know what? Job interviews are the worst. I used to hate those things.
Yeah, I remember I had another one too where they would just be like, they'd make up these things. Like I remember one.
You know how generally in life your mom or somebody will tell you, "Hey, nobody's looking at you. Nobody's judging you." And like, no, here they are.
Yeah.
Looking at you, scrutinizing you.
And they make up these things, of just sort of like these problem solving, and you're like, maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't. I don't know.
How many taxi cabs
here's
are
another
there
one that
in
happened to me,
Chicago?
and this one I actually passed, where someone said, I got asked this at a job interview. They said, we just want to check your analytical skills. And they said, okay, if you had ping pong balls that are 1 inch diameter and you had to fill a swimming pool with those ping pong balls, how would you calculate or estimate the number of ping pong balls that it would take to fill the pool? Like talk through your logic. And I said, well, any size pool? And they go, any size at all. And I said, well, I would have a 1 inch by 1 inch pool.
Boom.
And I would estimate 1 would fill it. And they were like, haha. No, seriously. And I'm like, and then I think
that's a great answer.
I think I like played the joke and avoided actually having to to do the answer.
That's a meta answer. That's perfect. Right?
Yeah. Well, I got that job actually.
Yeah.
So that one I got. But again, I was like, swimming pool. Like the job had nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? Like they just ask these questions that are like, I don't know if every job does this, but I've been hammered with a bunch of those.
When I was hiring, one of the questions that was pretty effective, I would say to people, what are you reading now? What are you currently reading? What book are you currently reading? And
what if people aren't reading anything?
For our position, that was probably a disqualifier. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was a language
business, and you needed to be sort of a bookish language person. And if they were like, oh, the Catcher in the Rye, they start pulling out something from 7th grade. They haven't read a book in 10 years, then that was a disqualifier. Yeah. Or if they try to bluff their way through it, you could pretty easily tell.
Right.
And like, or the one that would drive me crazy is like, I'm reading this fascinating book. I'm like, yeah? And what's the title? Something about squirrels and seahorses. Like, you don't know the title of this fascinating book? Not sure. And who wrote it? It's a guy.
I'd probably be in trouble in your interview. Because especially with like Nook now and stuff, like I often don't know the title of the book I'm reading or the author.
But if you're fascinated by it, you would,
that's
right?
actually true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's philosophy or something. But anyway, so imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
So all this is coming back eventually to jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
And one thing I like about jiu-jitsu, there's no imposter syndrome because
There isn't?
well, I don't know. Well,
Go ahead.
there is and there isn't.
All right.
There is definitely in that. I think it's huge in that it's a weird place. It's like a fight gym, you know. It's like people are doing MMA, and very few people feel like they belong in a fight. You know, everyone. I think there's a huge imposter syndrome for all like suburban people that make up most of the gym that are like, I don't know, I'm not really like a fighter or a cage fighter. You know, there's a handful in the gym, but a lot of people feel that there's some version of imposter, at least when they first come in.
Yeah.
The other side is that why I'm saying there's no imposter, because you also are what you are once you're on the mat. Like you can't fake. You can't say I'm a black belt.
Very hard to fake it, right?
You can't. You can't fake skill or knowledge for more than a minute. You know what I mean? Like we're at a job, you can fake it for a year.
Yeah.
You know, in an office, but on the mat, you've got a minute, and then everyone knows.
In a job, right? You can fake a career probably, right? If you're very astute politically, you could just maneuver everything, I imagine.
Right. And the mat's the opposite of that, is what I was saying. That you're 1 minute in, and
That's
you are
the
what
beauty
you are.
of training live.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to come out. And oddly enough, when these martial arts become more developed and less live, you know, they become more sort of cultural dance and costume and things like this, and they become less effective, that's when you can fake it. That's when you can be an effective imposter, right?
Yeah.
Did you hear the story in China that's happening right now? There's a guy, a Chinese man, who trains in jiu-jitsu, I think, in MMA, and I don't know his name. I'm sorry.
I don't know the story at all.
Okay, so he he's going around challenging these traditional martial artists like Tai Chi guys and Kung Fu guys, and he challenges them to real fights in a ring.
So he has basic MMA skills.
Yeah, and he's kind of a big burly guy. Looks like a tough guy, and of course these masters who've never done any live training, they can't fight at all, and he ends up just knocking them out. Or
I would guess most of them refuse it if they have any sense.
I have no idea, but I think he's got several bouts where he fought a Tai Chi guy and a Kung Fu guy and just beat the snot out of him and put the videos up, and the Chinese government is cracking down on him. They don't like it at all, Dan. It's really
It's weird
strange
for the government to have any position on it at all. Like,
Isn't
why
it?
would they not? Why would they even care?
Well, I think they're trying to preserve Chinese culture somehow, and I think that's the motivation. And you're disrespecting Chinese culture when you beat up a Tai Chi master. So what they have this thing in China where they have a social ranking system. So it's like a credit score, like a FICO score.
Like a Black Mirror.
Is it like Black Mirror?
Did
Oh
you-
yeah.
There's a Black Mirror episode where you have a constant social score.
That's what does it show up on your head,
It's
over
on
your
your-
head, or on your phone?
I think, yeah. I can't remember phone or head. But
I didn't watch that
adjusts,
entire
like,
episode. I watched most of it. That was with what's his name? Ron Howard's daughter. Is she playing the character? She's like a redheaded woman.
Yeah,
light-haired
yeah.
woman.
There was a red hair. Well, I didn't know she was Ron
That
Howard.
show is so disturbing.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch it. I think I didn't watch that episode.
They were
Then I
all-
watched a couple episodes, and it left me feeling uneasy for about a week.
Yeah, they were also good.
So good. The
Yeah.
Star Trek one was amazing,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So good. So creepy, right? But yeah, well thought out. So in China, they actually have that. So they lowered this guy's social ranking score.
Yeah.
So now he's
So China saw that Black Mirror episode, and they were like, "That's a great
they go,
idea."
that's brilliant.
Like, oh, why didn't we think of this?
and they're controlling it too.
Yeah.
So it's not like some algorithm
Yeah.
by your popularity. It's like they just hit you with it. So now he's basically not allowed to travel on anything less than like the lowest version. Like he has to go coach on trains and yeah. Well, I read it on the internet. I don't know if it's true. I can't verify it, but I thought I read an article from an reputable place. It sounds legitimate. So they're punishing him, and so then he's some kind of advocate. He's not backing down.
Yeah, maybe it's that he's just thinking outside the box and individually, and
Yeah, they don't like that.
Yeah.
I think they also think he's disrespecting the culture.
yeah.
but the culture's corrupted. If they're saying that they're fighting masters and they can't fight, then they should change. So then one of his last fights, this is what I read. I don't know if it's true. The government forced him to wear clown makeup if he was going to fight another master. So he fought a kung fu master, and he's wearing, it looks like insane clown Posse face. So it's so crazy.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure about that. The government, like, so the story's sounding a little weird to me, like the government.
It's weird, but I think it's a true story. Yeah.
But the other thing is why I'm not against the guy is that he can't make someone fight him. You know what I mean? Like, if he's jumping people, then he's in the wrong, obviously.
Oh, no.
They're
setting it up.
But that's what I'm saying. If they're agreeing to fight him, then I don't see how you could be against him.
No, I think he's a hero in a lot of ways.
He's aiming for truth.
For truth.
Yeah.
And so he beats up this kung fu guy wearing the clown makeup on. I think I saw a video of it. Then he starts crying because he's so emotional. But I'm a little worried about the guy. If he keeps beating these people up with clown makeup or not, I don't think the Chinese government's going to put up with it.
It seems a little more disrespectful to beat them up with clown makeup on. You think that doesn't really help matters as far as respect for them.
Very strange.
So my sensei got beat up by a guy in clown makeup.
So there's a guy who's going around beating up quote-unquote imposters.
Yeah.
And it is a little noble in a way, in a crazy way. He's got to be kind of crazy, though, because he's putting himself in such jeopardy.
I think all of us that do the sports that jiu-jitsu and MMA and boxing and wrestling and all these sports that Muay Thai, judo, a bunch more, agree with this idea of like it, or get annoyed by the traditional martial arts that delude themselves. Right. So just to be clear, I haven't really clarified it in my own head until this as we're talking, but I have no problem with the traditional martial arts that are honest. That they say we're not. Honest? That they're saying we are not teaching you the optimal way to fight.
Right.
They're saying, like say
we're doing Tai Chi in a park. It's just for our health.
Right.
Improving our nervous system and so
right.
forth.
So picture someone that leads that group, Tai Chi in the park, and someone goes, "I'm going to fight you." The head of that could be like, "Leave me alone. Like, what are you doing?" Right. And I would be entirely on that guy's side, on the Tai Chi master's side, right? Like, why are you challenging him to a fight? He didn't say he could beat you. And I think you can also have like karate schools.
Are there a lot of Tai Chi masters out there that are saying this has nothing to do about fighting?
I think with Tai Chi maybe, but let's just say karate and I don't know what's another big one, like what's like
Aikido or something.
Aikido's pretty big, and what's the
Taekwondo is huge.
Taekwondo, yeah. Let's say karate and Taekwondo, right? They're all over the place, and they generally are claiming that they're like. I think
the challenge with that is they do have sparring and they do have sport fighting,
and they have great.
And the guys
fighters.
at the highest level
are great fighters.
Yeah, they'll knock your head off your shoulders.
Yeah.
But that's an infinitesimal probably percentage of the people.
But what I'm saying is, so say there's a karate school that's aimed, it's in a suburb, it's aimed at people that just want to get in shape, want to learn a little, get a little confidence. Maybe there's mostly kids that go there and they learn some respect and self-control. Like, leave them alone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and like, so for me, if an MMA fighter stormed in there, it'd be like, get out of here. What are you doing? Like,
well, this guy in China isn't storming in on anybody. So, yeah.
I'm not attacking the guy in China, but I'm actually just saying that we're not. I don't like when it's black and white. Like, we hate
we're not
all
criticizing.
Yeah,
not at all.
Yeah, all those schools.
Only if they have an unrealistic sense of what they're doing.
So
like, I did meet this guy a couple of years ago, older guy, and he was training a little Tai Chi, and I think he was a psychologist, so he had a PhD, which I don't know if you get a PhD in psychology, if that makes you smarter or dumber.
No, dumber.
Some ways it makes you dumber, I think. And this guy was...
I have a PhD in psychology. I just...
It's so funny because this is the guy I went on the Vision Quest with out in Edmonton. And so for decades, he was like a clinician helping people. And he was a good guy. But he had done some Tai Chi, and he says to me, so do you think it really works in a fight? And I'm like, no, I don't. I go, how would they do against an MMA fighter? Probably knocked unconscious. It depends on the individuals.
In about 5 seconds.
And then he would tell me the story about how he used to train in New York City, and there was this guy. So like you I don't know if you're supposed to rush at the guy and try to grab his wrists, which I don't know why I've never seen anyone do that in a fight. And he would slip out of the way and shove you, and you would slam into a wall. And he goes, this guy was so good, they had to put a mattress on the wall because he would just slam you against the wall. And I thought, so then what happens? I don't know if pushing you into a wall is ever a fight-ending occurrence.
First of all, yeah, I don't think you have to be extra good at pushing someone into a wall to require a mattress. Like, I think I could push someone probably into a wall pretty hard without any Tai Chi training that you'd probably want a padding.
Right.
But but first of all, so even there, I'm a little forgiving in that if someone doesn't know, they're just like, I don't know.
I agree.
Like they've been at school, they're like, I did, you can't get mad at someone that's like, I don't know.
But there's something else going on there because they're willfully deluding themselves because any reasonable, intelligent person, they don't have to have a lot of background. They could go, you're pushing him against the wall when he tried to grab your wrist. What about the guy who just walks up and starts punching you in the face? Like any reasonable person using, with a reasonable intelligence could tell that this is nonsense. So it's almost like some kind of circuits we have in our nervous system, like related to maybe religion or cults, where we're willing to believe something preposterous. We want to believe it.
Yeah, I ran head on into it, and this is going back to like our second podcast or something where I was talking about how I ended up at your school and how I ended up training. And to me, it's related to the fact, when I saw real stuff, boxing gyms, jiu-jitsu fighters, wrestlers, and I came back to the karate school, and there was a bunch of young guys there, and I was like, hey, I found some awesome stuff, like real guys that can really, really fight, really, really know how. And they had all talked the same talk that I did. They all sounded like me. Like, I want to know what works. I want to be able to defend myself. I don't want to learn crap. I don't, you know what I mean? I want to learn what really works. And I found it, and I came back so excited. This is so long ago that it's a distant memory for me, but I was like, I came back so excited, and I was shocked to figure out that nobody would follow me. Like, none of them.
You're like, gentlemen, right over that ridge is exactly what we've been searching for years. Follow me. Yeah. And
turned around and was like, where is everybody? Exactly. Because I even thought, like, my first thought was like, everyone will do it. And then I was like, realistically, a few people won't want to come. And then it was like, say it's half. And then I was just shocked to learn nobody would come with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and a part of it was, like you said, it was delusion. I think part of it. They're like,
part of it was they knew what the reality was, and they were seeking refuge where they were, where they could say, this really works, and I'm comfortable here, and I'm going to suppress reality in order to be I'm going to delude myself.
And
so
most of them are like, I'm already a brown belt in karate or whatever, and they're like, I don't want that to go back to. I'm already have some authority here, some skill at doing these forms or whatever, and I don't want to go back to nothing. And real fighting is harder. It hurts.
Hard. Yeah.
It hurts. We're all injured. We're all hurt. We're all bumps and bruises, right? Like, to some extent,
Yeah. Yeah.
To some extent, it's a little harder. You have to.
It's harder.
It's harder than doing forms, and
Definitely harder.
A little knocked around a little bit, so they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But again, that's fine with me. If they said, I don't want to do that, I don't want bumps and bruises, fine. I want to stay in the school. I like it here. Fine. That's all fine. The only part I start getting irritated is when they start sort of yapping, like, sort of like if they won't do it and then they start to say, I still think this is superior for a real fight, this kind of stuff, like a street fight, it would work better, and like the gym is filled with people that use it, law enforcement officers and pro fighters and people that use it. And
I was listening. It really comes back to the live training. So why is live training superior? I know people have talked this to death. You're getting better feedback, so you can adjust what you're doing and improve your timing and rhythm and just general technique. I was listening to Jocko Willink on his podcast, and they were talking about their training in Navy SEALs. So they kind of morphed their training. So initially, they would do some exercises where they're going into buildings and and they would use live ammo. They go, this is the best way to do it, live ammo. So real bullets are going off. It's freaking scary. But they're shooting paper targets. And he said, we were perfect. We would just go in there, hit every target. Everything went great. Then they switched, and they started training with paintball guns. And then they didn't shoot at paper targets. There were other soldiers who were shooting back and who were maneuvering. And he said, holy cow, it was so much more difficult. But the training got them so much better.
Right.
And they learned things they could not have learned otherwise. One, for example, they would line up in a hallway maybe with 20 guys in a row, and the enemy would just stick their hand out with a machine gun down the hallway, but they were like completely in the other room, and just empty the magazine down the hallway and kill half of them without even looking at them. And people complain, well, that's really not fair. Nobody would ever do that. And Jocko was like, what do you mean? He just did it.
Yeah.
What do you mean nobody would ever do it? That's probably exactly what they're going to do. And they were able to adjust with that better feedback. So I think ultimately what they found is they wanted to do, I think the majority of the training is like with paintballs, and then some of it with live ammo, because that gives you a different experience as well. And that trained them the best. Just makes sense in hindsight, of course.
Right. And the other example of getting angry, because I spent a lot of time being like, we're not putting down these schools that just know that are a different thing and have different goals. But don't you remember like the school before you that basically got people, the very beginning of your school in Dedham came from a group of guys that were training in another town in a Tai Kwon Do gym.
Oh, right.
Right. I was actually one of those. Is there
You're
anyone?
one of the first
I think
disciples.
Is there anyone else? Jack, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Who else was up in that gym that's still around?
They're still around? I think I drove them all away.
Is there anyone?
That's what I do. I think the rest of them are not speaking to me and don't return my phone calls.
Or have moved on, or
I don't remember.
Moved on.
I think they're all gone, Dan. Yeah, it's you and Jack are the only ones. I keep insulting Jack on a weekly basis, but he keeps coming back, so I don't know.
So that guy, as I remember it, I'm trying not to name
the guy
people,
running that original martial arts place.
He would talk in terms of like, well, obviously the true Taekwondo masters can't do MMA because
they would kill somebody.
Our kicks are too strong, and well, every kick will break bones, and you can't train that way, Yeah. And that's when you can push back, right? Like that's when you can send a guy into the school and say, "Well, I'll fight you," right? Like that's when this Chinese guy can walk in and go, "All right, then, go ahead and kick and break my ribs. Go ahead and When they start talking that way, then I have no patience. Then I'm like,
that's
all
nonsense.
right,
I mean,
now you're being aggressive.
Now that MMA, see, all of these sports, so one of the critiques of traditional martial arts may apply is, well, that's sport fighting, and it's really not the same thing as on the streets. Well, of course not. But when you get something like MMA, it's as close to any kind of quote-unquote real fighting that there could possibly be. And now that it's a developed professional sport and still developing, and there's so many financial rewards for being good at it, those guys are the best fighters in the world. That's bar none. That's all there is to it. I mean, it becomes professional sports, I think, is pretty close to the ultimate meritocracy,
Right.
It's we just want to win, Do you think the Patriots or Belichick, they're going to have any criteria when they hire somebody other than, is this person going to help us win? I mean, that's all they care about.
Right. So to your point to MMA, every bit of technique is
to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they can find it, then nobody's going to say this kick is too dangerous to my opponent. No, they don't care. They just want to win. And there's a lot of guys that are coming from the sport fighting now in the Taekwondo and the kickboxing. And they've done some kickboxing that are doing pretty good in MMA. And they do have, you do not want to get hit in the head with the spinning wheel kick.
Right.
Man, that heel hits you in the temple I saw this guy, I forget his name, and he has this like hook kick that kind of hits you in the back of the head with his heel. I mean, it's just devastating. So those techniques are super effective for sure. But, to get very good, you have to train live. That's
Right.
all there is to it. But I do notice there is something funny that happens in combat sports, Dan. Take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So that's a great combat sport, but there's no striking in it. So
Right.
so all these sports are imperfect representations of actual fighting. MMA is the least imperfect representation. It's even better than boxing and kickboxing because you can grapple and you can go on the ground, which is possible to happen in a real
But
fight.
to your point, there's some truth to like jiu-jitsu is not, if a bunch of guys jump on you, jiu-jitsu is problematic because if you're on the ground and there's three other guys,
Bunch of
beating on
guys
you,
here
you
is
can't-
problematic for anybody, but jiu-jitsu is an imperfect representation of fighting.
Right.
But what I just realized, Dan, is that what happens is the discrepancies from the actual fighting, so the imperfections in the representation, they start becoming the key leverage points for success in the sport, which is really weird, right?
Right.
So, in other words, there's no striking in jiu-jitsu, and the way the rules are, you don't lose points for pulling guard. So now people can literally sit down in front of you, and it's probably the optimal strategy because
Right.
now
Because you can't be kneed in the face and you can't be kicked in the head.
can't be kicked in the head. And as far as the sport goes, if I sit down in front of you, you can't score points for taking me down now. So it's strategically I remove some offense from you, and if I somehow from that position take you down, I get points. So it's really weird that the imperfections end up becoming sort of the key, points of leverage to start winning in the sport, which make you a worse fighter because there's no way in hell you would ever sit down in front of somebody in a sport
Or
in a fight.
An easy one that a lot of people that do jiu-jitsu, I'm sure I've noticed, is a lot of people are more comfortable with someone mounting them than side controlling them, right? Like it used to be the whole goal of jiu-jitsu was to get mount
Okay.
because you could rain down punches
Oh yeah.
for the Gracies.
Right.
But now a lot of times you're like, I will never get out of this side control. And they mount and you're like, oh, good. Like I can get out of this. And maybe there's fewer attacks from mount and fewer, like I can defend myself when he's up there. My escapes are better. I'm going to catch a leg where there's a crushing side control where you're like, I'll never get out of here. So people can actually prefer to be mounted now.
Maybe.
Whereas in a fight, you'd never prefer it because the
Right.
idea of mount was to rain down punches on somebody.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And in judo, you get rewarded for throwing your opponent on his back. And if you do that, you don't have to do anything else. So that probably becomes problematic in a fight because, it's like the Tai Chi guy throwing somebody against a wall. Now what happens? The fight really isn't over. But,
Right. Or wrestling where the match is over if you're on your back, right?
You pin the person. Yeah.
If you're pinned, so you don't.
Right.
They don't initially.
The pinning
figure out
is good though too because it gives you a certain level of control over somebody. So
for that side, but if you're on everyone knows wrestlers on their back don't know.
Oh,
The
I see what you're
day
saying.
one wrestlers, if they're on their back, they don't know how to get out.
What's really? I was just talking to Jeff Perez over at Sityodtong. I went over there, visited with crew Mark Delagrati yesterday, and Jeff Perez, him, and we were talking about how wrestling seems lately to evolve now. So the highest collegiate wrestling is almost like jiu-jitsu. So somebody shoots in for a double leg, and it used to be before you'd either sprawl and smash the person or you kind of concede the takedown. Now they don't concede it, and they grab the other guy's legs, and it becomes this bizarre entanglement and scramble. So Ben Askren, I think, was one of the earlier people who sort of introduced this way of wrestling into wrestling, and now a lot of people have picked up on it. And now it looks more like jiu-jitsu. If you watch some of the high-level wrestling matches, it's not how it used to be back in the day. So that's kind of interesting as well. Oh, but we were talking about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I think we should get back to that, right?
Right. We've been on like a 20-minute tangent.
I think this podcast is a tangent.
Yeah.
Dimitri, we should change the name to
It's a 44 episode tangent.
The
we've
Great
been on.
Tangent. Yeah. I think I think it's so easy to have imposter syndrome because people. That's the trouble about promoting somebody, Dan. So as an
Oh,
instructor,
that's where it's really common, right?
I think it's tricky because I want to give somebody a belt. The way I look at belts is they are tools to help you in your career. That's the priority. That's the primary thrust for giving somebody a belt or some promotion. Secondarily, it could be you're recognizing them for their efforts and their mastery that they develop. So it's a nice thing, It's like
Right.
congratulations. Um, and then there's probably some other reasons I can't think of at the moment. Maybe it helps create some order in an academy and people can see what's going on. Um,
But it's
but
huge for imposters. Like, I know there are people that get the belt and feel like it's about time, but I think the majority feel like, oh, I can't believe I'm getting this belt right now. I might have told you this, but when my last belt I got, I was like, what are you doing? How am I, like, what? But then I can't, I was just like, didn't I tell you this? Like, you actually, I might not have told you this, where you gave the speech like this, oh, I'm really happy to give this belt, blah, blah, blah. And then you were like, Dan. And I looked around. I was like, who's Dan?
Who's this Dan they
Yeah,
speak of?
I'm not even kidding. Like, I was like, who's Dan? I looked up and down the thing, and I realized both directions they were all looking toward me. Like, I'm not kidding. I was like, oh, my God, he means me. I was that stunned. I mean, my thinking, though, right from there was, I was going to go into this, like, I was going to be like, what, me? But what I realized, too, and it applies to everyone out there that has this sort of imposter syndrome or feels like they don't deserve the belt, is my first thought was, it's rude to you. It's insulting to the instructor for me to start saying, oh, I don't deserve it, and I don't, because then it's like, you're like,
In a way,
I gave
yeah.
it to you, right? You know what I mean? You're like, to start saying,
What am I,
why?
an idiot? Yeah, I don't know
exactly.
what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's helpful advice to anyone that's feeling like, oh, I don't deserve this. It's like, it takes the control, like your decision making. It's like, you have to stop. You're being rude to say you don't deserve it. Like, if you say, I don't deserve this, why'd I get this? I don't feel good enough. It's like, you're insulting someone when you do that. So don't do it.
I agree.
Even if you feel it, like, don't do it. Keep quiet.
But not only are you insulting, you're actually objectively not as qualified to make the assessment as your instructor is. Because your instructor, I've been doing this for 20 years. I think I know who a blue belt is and who a purple belt is in my academy. So for somebody to say, yeah, I don't agree with you, I think you're wrong, and they've been training for whatever, 5 years or something, like, well, you objectively don't have the same experience as I do. So you can't be as qualified to make the assessment. You know what I mean? It's so at some level, you're just wrong.
Right.
But you're also you're being a little disrespectful to your instructor.
But maybe not everyone is this way. Like, but what I've noticed for myself is that I'm also pretty bad at assessing myself at all. Like, so maybe that's common too. I don't know if it's common, but I always said this, where I'll look around I'll see like some new guy going, like some new, really like young, strong guy. And I'll watch him rolling and I'll be like, oh my God, that guy's going to murder me. Like just watching him go, I'll be like, oh, this is going to suck. And then I'll get the better of him, and I'll be like, wow, like watching him, I didn't think that's what would happen. And so I realized, I'm like, maybe I'm not that good at realizing where I am either. You know what I mean? Like, so you can be mistaken yourself about your own.
I think so. And I think, so essentially a student can feel either under-rewarded, where they're like, I should have been promoted a long time ago. They can feel adequately rewarded. They're like, yeah, I'm right where I should be. Or they can feel over-rewarded, where, Jesus, I don't deserve this purple belt. What's going on? This is crazy. So as an instructor, I have to be sensitive to that as well. I don't want somebody especially feeling too over-rewarded. If they feel a little under-rewarded, I don't really care, because I'm not sandbagging on anybody anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're probably incorrect if they're feeling under-rewarded. Or it might be a strategy, well, they're feeling a little under-rewarded, good. That'll get them a little hungrier.
Also, we've talked about it on this podcast. There's blue belts here that could be purple in your gym, that could be purple belts or roll at a purple belt level.
Well,
that could beat a lot of purple belts.
Oh,
is what I
yeah.
mean. You know what I mean? Like, for sure.
Well,
so it's like, it's not like you didn't notice. It's not like, nobody knows that they're good. No, if they're sitting there saying, I'm actually better than this belt, it's like, you know, that you have some other reasoning. You have like,
well, as the martial art and the sport is developed, Dan, it makes it much more difficult because there's some people that have been training since they're 5 years old, and they're not allowed to get an adult blue belt until they're 16. So now you could potentially have an athlete who's 18 years old that's been training for 13 years on a daily basis, and they're a blue belt. I mean, they're likely going to be at a super high level, maybe even at a black belt level at that. I mean, I was listening to another podcast. Remember the tennis player Boris Becker?
Yeah.
He won Wimbledon when he was, I think they said 18 years old.
Yeah, I remember.
So you can be 18 and be the best in the world at something. So, and they could be a blue belt in jiu-jitsu,
Right.
And I see it. So it makes it very hard as an instructor because here's the other thing, Dan. I can't give people belts in a vacuum. I have to consider the greater community of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So if I promote people to, let's say, a blue belt much faster than the general community, then the danger is that people can say, oh, our blue belts aren't as good as everyone else's blue belts, therefore this academy isn't as good at developing people and teaching people. And that might be the case. It might not be the case. It might be that I just promoted them way faster. So, as far as time in, they're just as good or better than everybody. So you have to consider the greater jiu-jitsu community. And now with all these tournaments, they're keeping people at blue belts longer and at purple belts longer probably than they should. I mean, my son competed against this young kid who I think has been training his whole life. I think it was last year in blue belt, and he lost to the guy. He wins in so many tournaments. He's basically a professional jiu-jitsu player. And my son had a great match, but he lost. The other guy was very technical and out and beat him. I forget the result, but then the guy was promoted to a purple belt and immediately won double gold at the next tournament. So he won not only his weight class, but he won the open weight class too at purple belt. So he's one of the best purple belts in the world. A month before he was a blue belt. So
isn't there? Someone's forwarded me something, and I don't know the details, but I think at the world level, again, there's a blue belt who's like number 8 or 9 in the world. Like I think it happens even at the the world level, like where it's like this guy is just amazing and young guy. He's technically a blue belt, but
so
he's just a murderer.
So it makes it tricky for an instructor, and we have to take all of this into consideration. And I have to consider the individual, but I don't want to have anyone feeling too over rewarded, because when you feel too over rewarded, then you're going to feel like an imposter, and then you're going to be in that ego trap that we talked about. So if I feel so over rewarded that every time I go to train, I feel like I'm losing esteem, then it's consistently a negative experience. So I can't do that to somebody.
There's another mindset too. Like when I got the purple belt, I was like, oh, I'm not a purple belt, all this. But then just coincidentally, like in life, it was like right after I got that, like all these other things happened in life. It was like, deaths in the family and like, like these big events. And it actually, like, as far as the feeling over rewarded, it helped in that I was like, I'm worried about, I'm worried about whether I have a purple belt and I don't deserve it. Like, the basic message from like the universe. From the universe was like, calm down. Like, who cares? And I think that's a legitimate thing. I understand. I'm not saying that jiu-jitsu is not important to people. They don't, but like, really stop for a second and think like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, you feel that you don't quite deserve the belt you have. Like,
I think people
probably no one else is even worried about it in the gym. Because I've had people say it to me, like, when you take yourself out of it, like, other people will be like, oh, I can't believe I have this purple belt. And I'm like, calm down. Like, I couldn't care less. And then I have to reasonably think that's what people think about me, too. They're like, whatever, man. Like, you've been around a long time. Like, or just no one cares that much.
They don't care that much.
And if they do, who cares anyway?
I think they only care about how it sort of affects their calculation of where they're at and what they should do, what belt they're at or something.
Right.
And what's happened to me is when you become a black belt for a number of years, you forget about all of this. It loses so much more weight.
Right.
It's really astounding. You almost forget about it. And the great thing about, we have some really good competitors at our academy now at blue belt. My son is really good. Gage is super good. These guys are blue belts, and they can give you all you can handle and more. And I think it's good because it kind of like goes, it reinforces this idea. Oh yeah, the belt really doesn't matter that much. You know what I mean? If you have a motivated person training twice a day, 5 or 6 days a week, guess what? They're going to be really freaking good. I don't care what their belt.
And then you add in different weights and different strength and different ages, and
yeah, they're really good, and it makes me better because I watch those guys and then I learn from them too. So that can be really good. That can put you in that position of sort of transcending yourself, and it's just all jiu-jitsu and what can I learn? Who can I learn it from? And that's the best place to be coming from, right?
Right. And so the overall message about the imposter syndrome is like, calm down about it. Like, it's common. And
I think beyond that, I think it's good. I think if you're feeling a little bit like an imposter, that means you're outside your comfort zone, because you're not an imposter when you have mastered a domain and you're well within that domain.
Right.
You're like, driving my car. Do I feel like an imposter driving my car? No.
I don't deserve this license. Can't believe they gave me this driver's license.
But it means you're not stretching yourself. So when you're stretching yourself, you will feel like an imposter, and that's a good thing, right? And when we did the first episode of this crazy podcast, we probably felt a little bit like imposters, right? We haven't mastered it yet.
Sometimes you really are an imposter.
Oh, right. But you should be an imposter. Yeah, you got to be a little bit of an imposter at some part of your life, as long as you're developing yourself.
Right.
I don't mean an imposter by I'm just completely full of BS.
But like you said, anyone that if you haven't done something for a long, long time, you're going to be a little bit of an imposter at it, right? Like, you're not an imposter.
If you're doing something brand new, you're going to be an imposter.
Yeah, yeah. Or I'm saying, funny, even if you unless you've done it a long, long time. And like you said, there's maybe some sort of stagnation there. You're going to feel like an imposter because it's going to be newish to you, and you're going to feel like, should I be here? And
I think so. I think it's funny how different people embrace that position. You ever see these? I'm not like this, but ever see these guys that they embark on a new hobby or sport, and they just buy all the equipment, and they're all geared up and tricked out, and they look like somebody's been doing it for 10 years, and they're in month 1, right?
Yeah. But the other thing is to try to really, like, if you're really trying to be imposter, you're always jiu-jitsu's a perfect example. You cannot fake it on the mat. I think I might have told you this, but there was an imposter in the other direction where someone told me they said, before, as someone I didn't know back in Dedham, and I said, how long have you been doing jiu-jitsu? And he said, 2 weeks.
You know what, Dan? That is the classic thing about jiu-jitsu that is different than those
like the
other
reverse imposter. Yeah,
traditional martial arts where people will significantly understate their actual experience so they can somehow, I don't know, feel better about their performance. Oh yeah, I've been doing it for 2 weeks. Oh yeah, well I was doing, I was a Division 1 wrestler who was like nationally ranked. Yeah, well, you're going to be pretty good at jiu-jitsu then. Yeah,
that's happened to me too. But this guy told me 2 weeks. He started. I kind of lazily went in, and he threw a go-go plata on me. Like, he threw his shin across my neck and pulled my. And I guess most people know what a go-go plata, but if anyone,
it's a complicated technique.
You don't. Nobody does it. 2 weeks.
It might have come naturally to him.
No. It was just like.
So what do you think his actual experience was?
He'd been in another gym.
He'd just been at our gym for 2 weeks.
That's what I think. He took it as like, I've been at this gym for 2 weeks.
What a dumbass.
Yeah. That was one where I refused to tap, where it hurt, but I was like, there's no way I'm tapping to this stupid go-go plata with this stupid kid who told me 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But he was littler too, so I was able to just sort of muscle everything off me. But I was, you're sitting there in the middle of it thinking like.
Then when you don't have to train live, then you could say, oh, I've been doing this for 37 years.
Right. And you can't be called out.
Yeah.
But I always said you always know. So taking it away from the gym a little bit, but to the next level of like just being what I run into all the time is people say they're a fan of MMA, big fan. And if you're not, you just can't. You know what I mean? Like
Big fan. I love that Ken Shamrock.
Yeah,
How's he doing?
They don't. Yeah, they'll just say something that you go, you don't. You know, they'll say, I don't know, Stipe Miocic, and they'll be like, I'm not sorry, I don't know who that is, and you'll be like, all right, you don't know who that is, like, it's not a big debate, or like, I've never. I'm sorry, I haven't. Is Daniel Cormier the guy who? I'm like, wait, okay, you're not a big fan. Like, you should know who that is. Like, it's fine that you're not a big fan. But why are you saying you're a big fan to me?
That's
like,
funny.
And that's true of any sport, right? It's like saying I'm a huge hockey fan. Like, you'll be exposed really quickly if you're not. Like,
right.
You can't.
I don't care. I don't brag about my huge fanness about anything. I'm not a huge fan of almost anything. I watch the Patriots. I'm going to watch all of their regular season games and playoff games. I'm not going to watch their preseason games.
Right. You can't talk more.
I did watch the Bruins, the last two Bruins games. But those are the first two games of the year that I've watched.
Me too. I did the same thing. Yeah, but exactly. I'm not going to be out there like big Bruins fan, and then I'll be like, I don't know. You know, they'll be like, who should be on the second line? You know, I'll be like,
they got to make
some
changes there.
What's the second line? Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, you'll get caught really quickly. But something about MMA, it has this macho feel to it, or something that guys like to act like they know more than they do. I feel
think
like,
it's fundamental.
I feel like people don't make up that they're hockey fans, and I hear people making up their MMA fans all the time to me.
That's interesting.
And it's a little annoying, a little frustrating, because very quickly you don't want to talk to them. You know, you're like, I'm not interested in talking to you.
That happens to me sometimes. It's annoying when I don't like it when somebody starts explaining jiu-jitsu to me or explaining MMA, and they obviously don't have a clue to what they're talking about. It's so ponderous. I got to sit there, listen to somebody try to explain something that's almost my expertise. It's annoying.
Right. Or a good example for me, I have friends that never trained and aren't big fans of either sport, like no MMA, and they'll sort of say, you know, they'll start weighing in very confidently on like who would, you know, could Mike Tyson beat, you know, the Daniel Cormier or something, where like, and they're so confident, and it's like, what are you basing? Like, you don't have any knowledge about any of
this. That's a universal problem, Dan, where
Yeah.
people really enjoy having opinions on things they have no business having an opinion on.
Right.
I mean, if you don't have the information and the expertise, it's impossible. But some people are perfectly comfortable having no information, no expertise, and have a very strong opinion.
That Dunning effect, where if you really, really know nothing, you're super confident because you don't even realize how clueless you are. You know, you don't realize you're so clueless that you don't know what you're saying.
But Dan, we came up on this. This came up last week, I think. We're going to start having stronger opinions.
Right.
We're just going to think in a nuanced way and have a strong opinion.
Right. Like we should talk more like clueless people.
Clueless idiots. Yeah. We should do more of that.
They seem to do well. Like so now we can actually bring it all the way around as if there was a theme to this whole.
There has been. This is about the imposter syndrome.
Right.
Yeah.
But your original point was, and there's something to this, honestly, where back in the day, where it was like, who's going to start like a fight league, say.
Okay.
Someone like you were already involved in jiu-jitsu, and you might be like, I don't know anything about starting a fight league. I'm not really sure. Am I the one to do it? I don't know how to do it. How do you rent an arena? And you wouldn't do it. Someone more clueless than you might be like, I'll do it. You know, like just launch in. They're not thinking through any of the issues, not thinking through any of the problems. And some of those guys, not that every guy that's done this is clueless, but some of those guys have had successful leagues and and, you know, like you said, doing financially well, doing really well, just because they didn't hesitate and think through all the issues.
Yeah, they were comfortable feeling like an imposter and just forging ahead and doing it.
Right. They didn't mind feeling like an imposter.
Yeah.
Or maybe didn't feel like it at all because
if you think about it, it's a little bit of a vanity and a weakness to say, oh, gee, I don't want to feel uncomfortable like I'm an imposter, so I'm not going to do something. That's a little bit of a weakness. So, I think we should encourage everybody this week to go out there and do things that make them feel like an imposter.
Yeah. And if you already are doing something that makes you feel like it, but don't worry about it. Yeah. Feel good about it.
Feel good about it. I think we just finished with the uplifting note and message.
Yeah. Unless it's like something illegal, like you're actually like you've taken someone's identity.
Dan said to like steal somebody's identity.
That's our take-home message.
That's it.
Take someone's identity and be an imposter.
Be an imposter. Yeah, people love that. I think I've seen videos online about guys who are claiming to be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts and people coming in and taking them down.
Right.
I haven't really watched any of them, but I think they're out there. People seem to like that kind of concept, right?
Yeah.
Knocking off an imposter.
Yeah, that has to be dying out because no one's going to claim it. Like, I don't know.
I don't
People
even care.
know
They're
not to
obviously mentally ill.
Yeah.
I saw one where it was a stolen valor. Some wacky guy was going around a grocery store and he had, some kind of military fatigues on, these medals. And I don't know anything about it, but some guy who did sort of videotaped it and just showed the guy was a fraud and a fake. But, the guy obviously had mental illness issues, So.
I'd basically leave like it's annoying. Like so now we're talking about actual imposters, like stolen valor. Like it's annoying, but I don't know. Like going after all these people is just more aggravation in your life. I don't think you need. Like if someone like a fake jiu-jitsu black belt, like. It's annoying to you, right? But do you need to go? I think
in that regard, no, because they're never going to get any traction. They're going to get found out sooner or later. So yeah, it's really doesn't matter. Yeah.
And also, people aren't. This is why you can't have like sort of like vigilantism because people aren't good judges at, like sort of someone will say I'm going to storm this gym. So I've seen things online where someone storms a gym to expose an imposter, and you end up feeling sort of like, the guy storming the gym's kind of
a dick.
Yeah, kind of a dick. You're like, I'm not sure I'm on his side. And or there's online a famous video where a biker makes a kid take off his biker jacket because he's like, you're not a real biker, but it was like Sons of Anarchy jacket, like it's like a TV show jacket, you know what I mean? And it was like you don't deserve to wear that, you're not a biker, and it was like, well, it's like a TV show about bikers.
That's kind of silly.
And the guy posted it as if like, I exposed this kid and made him take it off. But to me, it looked like some guy bullying some kid at a gas station.
I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like leave people alone. People don't have to. You don't have to be a superhero. Like even if you don't like the kid wearing the jacket, leave it alone. So now we've touched on actual imposters.
I think we covered. I think we should wrap it up. I think we covered
the imposter episode.
The imposter episode. So don't worry about feeling like an imposter. You probably should, as long as you're not stealing somebody's identity, and don't be a dick bothering other people who are acting like imposters. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right, folks. Please like, share, review, rate, and tell your friends about this amazing podcast. Thank you again, Dan.